The Galactic Council ship Horizon dropped out of hyperspace near the blue-green planet, its sensors immediately flooding with data. Captain Lurin stared at the readouts in disbelief. "This can't be right," he muttered, tapping the display. "Run a diagnostic. These readings must be faulty." Dr. Ellis, the Council's leading xenobiologist, leaned forward to examine the screen. His four eyes widened as he processed the information. "No malfunction, Captain. The readings are accurate." Ellis's voice carried a mix of scientific curiosity and genuine alarm. "This planet has atmospheric oxygen levels that would be combustible for methane breathers, radiation levels that should sterilize most life forms, and gravity 2.3 times the Council average." Lurin's skin paled to a light blue. "That would make it a Class 12 Deathworld," Ellis finished. "The highest rating we've ever recorded." The bridge fell silent. In the 3,000 years since the Galactic Council formed, uniting the thousands of spacefaring species across the galaxy, they had categorized millions of planets. Class 1 worlds were paradise planets. Perfect temperature, ideal gravity, no predators. Class 6 was considered challenging. Class 10 was deemed nearly uninhabitable. No one had ever discovered a Class 12 before. But the scans show cities, electronic communications. Officer Trell asked from her station. Ellis nodded slowly. Primitive technology, but unmistakable signs of civilization. "How is that possible?" Lurin demanded. "Nothing should be able to evolve sentience in these conditions." The Council had expected to find Earth empty or perhaps hosting simple microbes. Instead, they discovered an impossibility. A thriving civilization on a planet that by all galactic standards should be lethal to complex life. "We need to make contact," Ellis decided. But carefully. If these beings evolved in such conditions, they might be dangerous. 3 days later, after observing Earth communications, learning basic language patterns, and selecting a remote location, the Council landing team touched down in a forest clearing. They wore their standard environmental suits, more out of habit than necessity, as the air was breathable for most of them, if uncomfortably oxygen-rich. Dr. Ellis led the team of 6 researchers, each from a different Council species. They had barely begun setting up monitoring equipment when they heard a sound through the trees. "Someone's coming," hissed researcher Vox, her thin fingers tensing on her scanner. Into the clearing walked 2 humans, a man and a woman, wearing simple outdoor clothing and carrying small packs. They stopped, staring at the aliens and their silver shuttle with open-mouthed shock. "Hello," Ellis said through the translator, raising his 4 arms in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. "We come from beyond your world." The male human stepped forward protectively in front of his companion. Instead of showing fear, his face displayed curiosity and caution. "I'm Tom," he said slowly. "This is Kate. Are you really aliens?" Ellis was amazed. These humans showed remarkable composure for primitives encountering advanced beings. More surprising, they moved with easy confidence on this hellish world. "Yes, we represent the Galactic Council, a union of many species." The female, Kate, stepped forward now, appearing more curious than afraid. "Why have you come to Earth?" Ellis glanced at his team before answering. "We explore the galaxy, studying different worlds. Your planet is special, unlike any we've ever found." Tom laughed. "Special? It's just Earth." The aliens exchanged looks. The humans had no idea they lived on the most extreme inhabited planet in known space. They had no concept that they themselves were something extraordinary. Creatures who thrived in conditions that would kill most sentient beings in minutes. And the Galactic Council had no idea what they had just discovered. Dr. Neela hunched over her lab station, all 6 of her slender fingers tapping rapidly on the display. The medical data streaming in from the human volunteers defied everything she had learned in her 60 years as the Council's top xenobiologist. "Impossible," she whispered, running the tests for the 4th time. The lab door slid open as her assistant entered. Any progress with the Deathworlders, Doctor? Neela gestured at the screens. Look at these bone density readings. Their skeletons are like reinforced steel compared to ours. And their muscle fiber count. A human child could overpower an adult Xalaxian. On the screens, medical scans showed detailed images of human physiology. What appeared unremarkable to humans was revolutionary to galactic science. Most fascinating is their immune system, Neela continued. They carry billions of microorganisms inside them without harm. Their bodies fight constant battles against pathogens we've never even encountered. She pulled up another chart. And their ability to recover from injury. We gave volunteer subject Mike a small cut yesterday. Look, it's already healing. Our people would take weeks to repair similar damage. Her assistant's eye stalks quivered with concern. Are they dangerous? They evolved on a planet with 5,000 species that could kill them, Neela said quietly. What do you think? Meanwhile, at the Council Military Academy, Captain Reynolds watched alien soldiers train from an observation platform. The human had been invited as part of the cultural exchange program, though many council officers had objected to allowing a Deathworlder near their troops. Commander Dox approached, his chitinous exoskeleton clicking with each step. What do you think of our elite forces, human? Reynolds nodded politely. Impressive coordination. Very disciplined. Would you care to observe a combat demonstration? Dox asked. The training floor below featured 2 alien soldiers sparring with training staffs. Their movements were precise but seemed oddly slow to Reynolds. Actually, Reynolds said, in the spirit of cultural exchange, perhaps I could participate. On Earth, we learn through practice. Dox hesitated. Our combat training is quite intense. I wouldn't want you to be injured. Reynolds smiled. I'll be careful. 5 minutes later, Reynolds stood on the training floor in borrowed gear that fit poorly over his more compact frame. His opponent, a veteran named Creel, stood nearly 7 feet tall with 4 arms, each holding a training staff. Begin light contact only, Dox announced, sounding worried. Creel moved first, swinging 2 staffs in what seemed to Reynolds like slow motion. The human easily stepped aside, tapped Creel's leg with his own staff, and moved back to a ready position. Creel looked confused. No one had ever dodged his opening move. The alien attacked again, using all 4 arms in a complex pattern designed to overwhelm opponents. Reynolds weaved between the strikes, deflected 1 staff with his own, and lightly tapped Creel's torso. Point, called Dox, sounding surprised. Frustrated, Creel abandoned light contact rules and launched a full attack. Reynolds responded instinctively, blocking the strike, grabbing one of Creel's arms, and using the alien's momentum to flip him to the ground. The impact echoed through the training hall. Creel lay still, gasping for breath. Medical team, Dox shouted into his communicator. Reynolds looked horrified. I'm sorry. That was just a basic throw. I didn't use much force at all. 3 more soldiers rushed forward to help their fallen comrade. Reynolds found himself surrounded by alarmed alien faces. What are you? One whispered. News of the incident spread quickly through council channels. The human had hospitalized an elite warrior using what he described as light sparring. That evening, the council's security director reviewed the training footage with growing concern. These humans weren't just survivors of a deadly world. They were something far more terrifying. They were predators who didn't even know their own strength. Jack Porter straightened his tie as the transport glided toward the massive council headquarters. The massive ring-shaped station hung in space like a gleaming silver halo, home to representatives from over 3,000 species. Remember, Ambassador, his aide whispered, many delegates have never seen a human before. Try not to move too quickly or speak too loudly. Jack nodded. After 6 months of preparation, he was the first official human representative to the Galactic Council. The responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. When the doors opened to the Grand Chamber, Jack felt hundreds of alien eyes turned toward him. The room fell silent. Many delegates shifted uncomfortably or moved back slightly as he walked down the central aisle. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Jack Porter of Earth," announced the chairperson, a tall, willowy being with silver skin. Jack stepped up to the speaker's platform. "Thank you, Chairperson. I bring greetings from Earth. We are honored to join this gathering of galactic civilizations and hope to learn from your collective wisdom." His words were polite, but the tension in the room remained thick. One delegate from the back called out, "Is it true humans can survive radiation that would kill most species?" Before Jack could answer, another voice asked, "Do you really eat plants containing capsaicin toxins for pleasure? Is it true your planet has microorganisms that outnumber your cells 10 to 1? The chairperson raised all four hands. "Order. This is not an interrogation. Ambassador Porter is here to establish diplomatic relations." Jack smiled, trying to appear friendly rather than threatening. "I'm happy to answer questions about Earth and humans. Yes, we have adapted to our environment in ways that might seem unusual, but we come with peaceful intentions." The session continued with formal introductions, but Jack noticed how other delegates avoided standing near him. When he reached to shake hands, many flinched. Later that evening, at the diplomatic reception, Jack stood alone by a window overlooking the stars. Most delegates kept their distance, forming small clusters where they whispered and glanced his way. "They fear what they don't understand," said a voice behind him. Jack turned to see a reptilian delegate with iridescent scales, Ambassador Trell of the Vasari. She introduced herself. "My people evolved on a Class 8 world, not as extreme as Earth, but we understand what it means to be considered different." "I appreciate the welcome," Jack said, relieved to find someone willing to talk to him. Their conversation was interrupted by a server offering drinks. Jack accepted a blue liquid in a crystal glass. Trell's eyes widened. "Wait, that's not." Jack had already taken a sip. The liquid burned down his throat, and he coughed once before regaining his composure. "Strong stuff," he remarked. The server had gone completely pale. "I'm so sorry. That was meant for the Dorvian delegate. For your species, it's a deadly neurotoxin." Gasps echoed around them as nearby delegates backed away. Security officers rushed forward. "I feel fine," Jack said, confused by the reaction. "A bit tingly, but nothing serious." Medical staff quickly arrived, scanning him with handheld devices. The chief medical officer looked at the readings in disbelief. "His body is neutralizing the toxin," she announced. "His liver is processing it as if it were a mild intoxicant." The news spread quickly throughout the station. What would kill most species within seconds merely gave the human a slight buzz. Later, investigation revealed the incident wasn't an accident. A radical faction called the Purity Order had attempted to assassinate the human ambassador, fearing what the introduction of Deathworlders might mean for galactic stability. The plot backfired spectacularly. Instead of eliminating the human threat, they had demonstrated to the entire Council just how formidable humans truly were. That evening, Council security footage captured dozens of delegates accessing Earth's file in the galactic database. No one had paid much attention to the small blue planet before. Now, everyone was watching. The colony ship New Horizon drifted silently through space, its engines damaged and main lights dark. Inside, 50 human colonists huddled in the emergency shelter as Captain Reed assessed their situation. "The attack came without warning," he told the frightened group. "A Dreth battle cruiser. They disabled our engines before we could even respond." Marcus, the ship's engineer, studied the emergency systems display. "They think they've crippled us, but backup life support is still functioning." "What do the Dreth want?" asked Lisa, clutching her young daughter. "They've never encountered humans before," Reed explained. "Based on their communications, they believe we're easy prey. They're preparing to board and seize the ship." The faces around him showed fear, but also determination. These colonists had left Earth to settle on a Council-designated Class 3 world, considered mild by galactic standards, but still challenging enough that few species wanted it. Marcus stood up. I worked on the ship's design. There's a maintenance shaft they won't know about. I can reach the auxiliary control room and maybe restore some systems. Reed nodded. We need weapons too. The emergency lockers in Cargo Bay 3 should have mining equipment we can use. Mining equipment? Asked an older man. Reed's expression hardened. Plasma cutters. Hydraulic hammers. In the right hands, they'll work just fine. On the Dreth cruiser, Commander Vex watched the disabled human vessel with satisfaction. This would be an easy conquest. Their ship is primitive, he told his boarding party. Our scans show their life support is failing. These creatures come from a Class 12 death world, but out here in space, they are vulnerable like any other prey. His soldiers checked their weapons, designed to subdue without killing, as slaves were more valuable alive. Remember, Vex continued, they look weak, but approach with caution. Deathworlders may have unpredictable defenses. The Dreth had built their empire by preying on weaker species at the galaxy's edge, far from Council protection. They had never encountered humans before, but had intercepted enough Council communications to know these Deathworlders were causing concern. Begin boarding sequence, Vex ordered. The first Dreth soldiers cut through the New Horizons airlock, expecting to find dying humans gasping in thin air. Instead, they met complete darkness. Their night vision revealed empty corridors. The ship seemed abandoned. Proceed to the bridge, ordered the squad leader. Secure the command systems. The 12 Dreth soldiers moved cautiously through the ship, their footsteps echoing in the silent corridors. They passed the mess hall, crew quarters, and approached the bridge without encountering resistance. Too easy, muttered one soldier. Just as they reached the bridge entrance, the ship's gravity suddenly increased threefold. The Dreth, evolved for a low-gravity world, collapsed to the floor, their exoskeletons creaking under the pressure. From hidden positions throughout the corridor, humans emerged wearing magnetic boots. While the Dreth struggled against the crushing gravity, the colonists moved with effort but determination, wielding mining tools and emergency equipment. In the auxiliary control room, Marcus allowed himself a grim smile as he watched through security cameras. He had rerouted power to the gravity generators and increased them to Earth normal levels, crushing to the Dreth, but merely comfortable for humans. Within 10 minutes, the boarding party was captured. On the Dreth cruiser, Commander Vex lost contact with his soldiers and prepared a second, larger boarding party. He didn't realize the humans had already captured the Dreth boarding shuttle and were preparing a counterattack. When Council peacekeeping forces responded to the colony ship's distress call 3 days later, they found something unprecedented. The human colonists had not only survived, but had captured the Dreth cruiser and were using its communications array to call for help. The Council had never seen the feared Dreth defeated before, let alone by a supposedly helpless colony ship. The Frontier Incident, as it came to be known, changed everything. Admiral Klee stood before the massive holographic display, her six-fingered hands clasped behind her back as she studied the battle simulations. Around the table, Council military leaders watched with uneasy expressions as the red dots representing Vex forces overwhelmed the blue Council defenses. The simulation confirms what we already know, Klee stated flatly. Our conventional tactics fail against Vex aggression. We need a new approach. An aide entered and whispered something to her. Klee's expression changed subtly. Bring them in, she ordered. The doors slid open, and 4 humans entered the war room. Council officers shifted uncomfortably as the Deathworlders approached the table. Since the Frontier Incident, news of human capabilities had spread throughout Council space, creating both fear and fascination. This is Major Harris and his team, Klee introduced. They volunteered to help prepare our forces for the Vex threat. Azentari General's skin flushed with alarm. Admiral, with all respect, bringing Deathworlders into our military planning. The Vex have attacked 3 border systems in the past month. Klee cut him off. The humans are the only species to successfully defeat them in direct combat. Major Harris stepped forward, his movements careful and measured. He had learned to move slowly around other species to avoid startling them. "We don't claim superior technology or tactics," Harris said, "but we can offer a different perspective. Humans are used to fighting against overwhelming odds. It's in our history." At the Council Science Academy, Professor Tarn's presentation had drawn an overflow crowd. The biologist's research on human physiology had become the most downloaded scientific paper in Council history. "The remarkable adaptations we observe in humans," Tarn explained, pointing to the holographic display of human DNA, "appear to have developed through a perfect storm of evolutionary pressures." The audience watched, captivated, as Tarn displayed images of Earth. Their planet features extreme temperature variations, from freezing polar regions to scorching deserts. They evolved alongside thousands of apex predators. Their microbial environment is so hostile that their immune systems are constantly at war. Tarn clicked to the next image, showing the human lifting a heavy weight. Their high-gravity environment forced the development of dense muscle tissue and thick bones. But most remarkable is their endurance. Humans can continue physical activity long after most species would collapse from exhaustion. A nervous hand raised from the audience. "Are they a threat to us?" Tarn considered the question carefully. Any species with their capabilities could be dangerous, but humans seem driven primarily by curiosity and cooperation. They appeared genuinely shocked when they learned how unusual they are by galactic standards. In the Council Diplomatic Wing, Representative Juror watched the recording of the Frontier incident for the 12th time. The Dreth, who had terrorized the Rim worlds for centuries, defeated by untrained human colonists using mining equipment. His aide entered with fresh reports. "Sir, the military is implementing human training methods for special forces. The Science Division is studying Earth biology for medical applications, and 17 corporations have requested permits to manufacture human food products, particularly something called hot sauce." Juror's antennae twitched with concern. What about the Purity Order? Are they still agitating against human integration? Their membership has doubled since the Frontier incident, the aide confirmed. They're spreading fear that humans will overwhelm the Council. Their latest propaganda calls humans apex predators masquerading as diplomats. Juror looked out at the stars. For 3,000 years, the Council had maintained balance between thousands of species, none significantly more powerful than others. Human potential threatened that equilibrium. Send a message to Earth's ambassador, Jur decided. The Council needs to discuss military cooperation against the Vex. If humans want to prove their intentions are peaceful, let them help us against an enemy we cannot defeat alone. The decision was made. Whether from wisdom or desperation, the Council would embrace the Deathworlders. The galaxy would never be the same. Alarms blared throughout the Council space station as emergency lights flashed red. On the command deck, officials rushed between stations while the massive viewscreen showed dozens of angular black ships emerging from hyperspace. "Vex battle fleet confirmed," announced the sensor operator, voice trembling. "They've bypassed our outer defenses." High Counselor Mev turned to Admiral Klee. How did they penetrate so deep into Council space without detection? Before Klee could answer, more alerts sounded. Similar reports flooded in from 7 other systems. The Vex had launched a coordinated attack across the entire sector. "They've deployed atmospheric destabilizers on Proxima Colony," reported a communications officer. "Thousands of civilians down." Admiral Klee's expression hardened. "Activate the Deathworld protocol." The order flashed across Council networks. Within minutes, hidden ships emerged from concealed bases throughout the sector. Each carried small teams of human specialists, prepared for exactly this scenario. Lieutenant Davis and his 5-person strike team dropped from their stealth shuttle onto the hull of the Vex command ship. Magnetic boots secured them to the black metal surface as they moved toward an access hatch. Remember, Davis told his team through the helmet comm. Vex atmosphere inside contains chlorine compounds. Suits sealed at all times. They cut through the hatch and dropped inside. Unlike Council species, humans could function in the toxic Vex environment for limited periods, even if their suits were compromised. It was one of many advantages that had made the Deathworld strike teams the Council's most valuable asset against the Vex. Inside the ship, they encountered the first Vex soldiers. The tall, insectoid aliens fired energy weapons that would instantly paralyze most Council species. The human team had trained for this. They moved with surprising speed, using the ship's corridors for cover. "Wilson, Baker, take the engine core," Davis ordered. "Martins and Lee, secure the weapon systems. I'll head for the bridge." The teams split up, moving deeper into enemy territory. On Proxima Colony, Council evacuation ships couldn't land. The Vex atmospheric destabilizers had filled the air with toxic compounds that corroded standard ship hulls and were lethal to most species. From the colony's command center, Governor Trill watched the scanner with fading hope. His people would suffocate within hours. "Sir, incoming ship," called his aide. It's breaking through the cloud cover." On the screen, a rugged transport vessel descended through the poisonous atmosphere. Its hull was scorched but holding. "This is Captain Reeves of Earth Emergency Response," crackled the comm. "We're setting down at the main square. Our team can operate in the compromised atmosphere with limited protection. Prepare your people for evacuation." Trill watched in amazement as the ship landed and human rescuers emerged wearing only light breathing apparatus. They moved through the toxic fog, carrying Council citizens to safety while their own skin blistered from chemical exposure. Back on the Vex command ship, Davis fought his way to the bridge. 2 Vex guards fired their weapons, hitting him directly. The paralytic agent slowed him momentarily, but his enhanced human nervous system fought through the effects. The Vex commander turned in shock as Davis forced the bridge doors open. No species had ever remained conscious after a direct hit from their weapons. "How are you still standing?" the Vex commander demanded. Davis managed a pained smile. "You should see what we call exercise on Earth." The lieutenant activated the neural disruptor the Council scientists had developed based on human neurological studies. The Vex command crew collapsed. Davis limped to the control console, his body fighting off the paralytic toxins. He transmitted the shutdown codes to all deployed atmospheric destabilizers and opened a channel to Admiral Klee. "Command ship secured," he reported, requesting technical team for data extraction. Throughout the sector, the story repeated. Human teams penetrated Vex defenses, survived conditions lethal to other species, and turned the tide of battle. The invasion that should have crushed the Council in days was halted by a species that, until recently, no one had even known existed. The Grand Council chamber had been rebuilt after the war, larger than before, and with one significant addition. An Earth delegation now held a permanent seat at the inner circle. Today, the chamber was filled to capacity as representatives from thousands of worlds gathered for the historic ceremony. High Counselor Mev stood at the central podium, his translucent skin glowing with ceremonial bioluminescence. Behind him, a massive viewscreen displayed images from across the galaxy, planets recovering from Vex attacks, new colonies on previously uninhabitable worlds, and ships bearing the new unified emblem. 5 years ago, Mev began, the Council faced extinction. The Vex Empire, which had threatened our borders for centuries, launched what they believed would be their final victory. The screen showed footage from the invasion. Vex ships darkening the skies of peaceful worlds, atmospheric destabilizers turning breathable air toxic, and Council forces retreating from superior technology. But they had not accounted for our newest allies, Mev continued. A species from a world so harsh that we had no category to properly classify it. The images shifted to human strike teams in action, Earth rescue ships braving toxic atmospheres, and human scientists working alongside Council researchers. Today, we formalize what began in crisis. Earth is officially recognized as a founding member of the new Galactic Alliance. Ambassador Jack Porter stepped forward to thunderous applause, a stark contrast to the fear his presence had once inspired. He accepted the Charter Seal, Earth's voice now equal to any in galactic affairs. In the Science District, Dr. Neela led a delegation through her expanded laboratory. Researchers from 50 species worked alongside human scientists, studying specimens in specialized containment fields. The medical applications alone have revolutionized treatment for a dozen species, Neela explained to the visitors. Human immune responses have inspired new approaches to diseases we thought untreatable. She stopped before a display showing a barren planet with thin atmosphere and high radiation. This is Novaterra, previously classified uninhabitable. Thanks to human terraforming techniques, 16 species now have thriving colonies there. A Zentari delegate raised a tentacle. Isn't it dangerous, giving Deathworlders access to so many worlds? Dr. Neela smiled. That fear led the Purity Order to attempt genocide against humans. Now they understand what we've learned. Humans thrive by building, not conquering. Their evolutionary history made them cooperative within their groups to survive their harsh world. In the training arena, Major Harris watched Council cadets run the obstacle course his team had designed. Species that once could barely communicate now worked in coordinated units, combining their unique abilities with techniques adapted from human military training. Impressive improvement, noted Admiral Klee, joining him at the observation window. The Solari complete the course in half the time they did last month. Harris nodded. They're learning to push beyond their perceived limitations. That's humanity's real gift to the Alliance, not our strength or endurance, but our refusal to accept impossible situations. Below them, a cadet fell from a climbing wall. Instead of signaling for medical assistance as would have happened in the past, the cadet's teammates helped them up, and they continued together. The Council always sought harmony through careful balance, Klee observed. Your people showed us that true strength comes through adaptation and cooperation. As the ceremony concluded, the massive doors of the council chamber opened to reveal a new monument in the central plaza. Carved from stone taken from Earth and 50 other worlds, it depicted representatives of diverse species standing together. The inscription at its base, written in all Alliance languages, read, "No one feared Deathworlds until the day they found Earth. No one understood their value until humans showed us how to thrive in adversity." On viewing platforms throughout council space, trillions watched as human and alien representatives planted ceremonial trees from Earth, symbols of life thriving against all odds, of strength growing from struggle, and of a galaxy forever changed by the species that called the deadliest planet home.